school graduates, and they'd been drinking hard since about 2 in the afternoon. Pierce had invited Isabella to the bar, but she turned him down and told him to have fun, let off some steam. He deserved it. That night, as he had been doing for the past 6 months, a doctor named Martin Straw came over to the apartment Isabella and Pierce shared. Straw and Isabella were having an affair. He had promised he would leave his wife and children for her. Isabella was asleep when Pierce got to the apartment on Inman Street. He knew that Dr. Martin Straw had been there earlier. He had seen Straw and Isabella together at other times. He followed them on several occasions. As he opened the front door of his apartment, he could feel in every inch of his body that Martin Straw had been there. Straw's scent was unmistakable, and Thomas Pierce wanted to scream. He had never cheated on Isabella, never even came close. She was fast asleep on their bed. He stood over her for several moments, and she never stirred. He had always loved the way she slept, loved watching her like this. He had always mistaken her sleeping pose for innocence. He could tell that Isabella had been drinking wine. He smelled the sweet odor from where he stood. She had on perfume that night, from Martin Straw. It was Jean Patou's Joy, very expensive. He had brought it for her the previous Christmas. Thomas Pierce began to cry, to sob into his hands. Isabella's long auburn hair was loose. Strands and bunches flowed free on the pillows for Martin Straw. Martin Straw always lay on the left side of the bed. He had a deviated septum that he should have tended to, but doctors put off operations too. He couldn't breathe very well out of the right nostril. Thomas Pierce knew this. He had studied Straw, tried to understand him. Pierce fell on Isabella with all his weight, his force, his power. His tools were ready. She struggled, but he held her down. He clutched her long, swan-like throat with his strong hands. He wedged his feet under the mattress for leverage. The struggle exposed her bare breast, and he was reminded of how sexy and absolutely beautiful Isabella was. How they were perfect together. Cambridge's very own Romeo and Juliet. Thomas Pierce looked down at her. Isabella's eyes were like sand-blasted mirrors. Her small, beautiful mouth fell open to one side. She was helpless now, but she could see what was happening. Isabella was aware of her crimes and the punishment to come.
I don't know what I'm doing,
he finally said.
It's as if I'm outside myself, watching. And yet, I can't tell you how alive I feel right now.
Every newspaper, the news magazines, TV, radio, reported what happened in gruesome detail, but nothing like what really happened. What it was like in the bedroom, staring into Isabella's eyes as he murdered her. He cut out Isabella's heart. He held her heart in his hand, still pumping, still alive, and watched it die. He then impaled her heart on a spear from some scuba equipment. He pierced her heart. That was the clue he left, the very first clue. He believed he died that night, too. Smith was born from death that night in Cambridge. Thomas Pierce was Mr. Smith. Thomas Pierce is Mr. Smith, I said to the agents gathered at Quantico. I had been speaking for several moments, but now I stopped. There was a question from the group. Can I backtrack for just a second here? Your family was attacked, a young crew-cut agent asked. You did sustain injuries. There was an attack on my house. For reasons we don't understand just yet, the intruder stopped short of murder. My family is all right, believe me. I want to understand about the attack and the intruder more than anyone else does. I want that bastard, whoever he is. I held up my cast for all of them to see. One bullet clipped my wrist. A second entered my abdomen, but passed through. The hepatic artery was not nicked, as was reported. I was definitely banged up, but my EKG never showed a pattern of decreased activity. That was for Pierce's benefit, Kyle. This was Kyle Craig's master plan, and he spoke to the agents.
Pierce is a cold-blooded killer, and what we hope to do tonight is dangerous. It's unusual, but this situation warrants it. For the past several weeks, Interpol and the Bureau have been trying to set a foolproof trap for the elusive Mr. Smith, who we believe to be Thomas Pierce. They haven't been able to catch him at anything conclusive. And we don't want to do something that might spook him, make him run.
Sampson spoke up. He's smart as hell. His instincts are sharp, and he's disciplined. He did his homework, and he went right to Simon Conklin. I think he's competing with Alex.
So do I.
Kyle nodded at Sampson. Kyle had come to me about Mr. Smith before the Sinigi shooting spree had started. We had talked again when I had taken Rosie to Quantico for tests. I worked with him on an unofficial basis. I helped him with the profile on Thomas Pierce, along with Sandra Greenberg. When I was shot at my house, Kyle rushed to Washington out of concern, but the attack was nowhere near as bad as everyone thought, or as we led them to believe. It was Kyle who had decided to take a big chance. So far, Pierce was running free. Maybe if we brought him in on the case, on my case, it would be a way to watch him, to put pressure on Pierce. Kyle believed that Pierce wouldn't be able to resist. Big ego, tremendous confidence. Kyle was right. I continued, the two personas were starting to fuse. Mr. Smith and Thomas Pierce could merge soon. Actually, it's the Thomas Pierce part of his personality that seems to be diminishing. I think he just might have Mr. Smith take out Simon Conklin. Sampson leaned into me and whispered, I think it's time you meet Mr. Pierce and Mr. Smith. Everything we could think of was tightly in place by 7 o'clock that night in Princeton. Kyle Craig's fear was that we would never catch Pierce in the act, never be able to hold him for more than 48 hours. Kyle had objected to Thomas Pierce's assignment to the Mr. Smith case, but he'd been overruled. He had watched Pierce, listened to him, and became more and more convinced that Pierce was involved, at least with the death of Isabella Calais. Pierce never seemed to make a mistake, though. He covered all of his tracks. Then a break came. Pierce was seen in Frankfurt, Germany, on the same day a victim disappeared there. Pierce was supposed to be in Rome. It was enough for Kyle to approve a search of Pierce's apartment in Cambridge. Nothing was found. Kyle brought in computer experts. They suspected that Pierce might be sending himself messages, supposedly from Smith, but there was no proof. Then Pierce was seen in Paris on the day Dr. Abel Sante disappeared. His log stated that he was in London all day. It was circumstantial, but Kyle knew he had his killer. So did I. Now we needed concrete proof. Nearly 50 FBI agents were in the Princeton area, which seemed like the last place in the world where a shocking crime ought to occur, or a notorious murder spree end. Sampson and I waited in the front seat of a dark sedan, parked on an anonymous-looking street. We weren't part of the main surveillance team, but we stayed close. I wanted a crack at Simon Conklin. Unfortunately, Pierce was between me and Conklin for now. We were a few blocks from the Marriott, in town where Pierce was staying. Quite a plan, Sampson mumbled as we sat and waited. The FBI tried just about everything else. Kyle thinks this would work. He feels Pierce couldn't resist solving the attack on my house. It's the ultimate competition for him. Who knows? We waited on the side street in Princeton as night blanketed the university town. It was déjà vu all over again. John Sampson and Alex Cross on stakeout duty.
Thomas Pierce felt that he was invincible, that he couldn't be stopped. He waited in the dark, trance-like, without moving. He stayed like that until the living room light was switched on and he saw Simon Conklin. "Intruder in the house," Pierce whispered. "Ring any bells for you, Conklin?"
He held a .357 Magnum pointed directly at Conklin's forehead. "What the—" Conklin was blinky-eyed in the bright light. "This is unlawful entry!" Conklin screamed. "You have no right to be here in my house. Get the hell out!"
Pierce couldn't hold back a smile. He got up out of the chair, holding the gun perfectly still in front of him. "Downstairs. We're going to your basement, down to the cellar." The light was already on downstairs. Thomas Pierce had gotten everything ready. An old cot was set up in the center of the crowded basement room.
"What the hell?"
Simon Conklin yelled when he saw what Pierce had done. "That's what they all say," Thomas Pierce said, and shoved him. Conklin stumbled down a couple of stairs.
"You think I'm afraid of you?"
Conklin whirled and snarled.
"I'm not afraid of you."
Pierce nodded his head once and cocked an eyebrow. "I hear you, and I'm going to straighten that out right now. He shoved Conklin hard again and watched him tumble down the rest of the stairs. Pierce walked slowly down toward the heap. He whacked Conklin with the side of the magnum and watched as blood spit from Simon Conklin's head. "You starting to get afraid now?" "You don't understand very much about pain. I know that about you. You don't have much in the way of guts, either. You were the one in the Cross house, but you couldn't kill Alex Cross, could you? You couldn't kill his family. You punked out at his house. You blew it. That's what I already know." He stayed in Conklin's face. "First, I want you to tell me that you're the one who snuck into Alex Cross's house. You did it. Now just tell me you did it. What you say here will not be held against you and will not be used in a court of law. It's just between us." Simon Conklin looked at him as if he were a complete madman. "How perceptive." "You're crazy. You can't do this. This won't matter in court," Conklin squealed. Pierce's eyes widened in disbelief. "Didn't I just say precisely that? Weren't you listening? Am I talking to myself here? No, it won't matter in their court. This is my court. So far, you're losing your case, Simple Simon. You're smart, though. I'm confident you can do a much better job over the next few hours." Simon Conklin gasped. A shiny stainless steel scalpel was pointed at his chest. "Look at me. Would you focus on what I'm saying, Simon? I'm not another gray suit from the FBI. I have important questions to ask. You were the one at Cross's house. You attacked Cross. Let's proceed from there." With a swift move of his left arm, Pierce pulled Conklin roughly up off the cellar floor. His physical strength was a shock to Conklin. Pierce put his scalpel down and hog-tied Conklin to the cot with rope. Pierce leaned in close to Simon Conklin once he was tied down and helpless. "Here's a news flash. I don't like your superior attitude. Believe me, you aren't superior. Somehow, and this amazes me, I don't think I've made myself clear yet. You're a specimen, Simon. Let me show you something creepy." "Don't!" Conklin screeched. He was helpless as Pierce made a sudden incision in the upper chest. "Can you concentrate better now, Simon? See what's on the table here? It's your tape recorder. I just want you to confess. Tell me what happened inside Dr. Cross's house. I want to hear everything." He turned on the tape recorder and held it under Conklin's bearded chin. "Tell me what happened." "I was the one who attacked Cross and his family. Yes, it was me. Gary made me. He said if I didn't, somebody would come for me. They'd torture and kill me. Somebody he knew from Lorton Prison. That's the truth, I swear it is. Gary was the leader, not me." Thomas Pierce was suddenly almost tender, his voice soft and soothing. "I knew that, Simon. I'm not stupid. I knew that Gary made you do it. Now, when you got to the Cross house, you couldn't kill him, could you? You'd fantasized about it, but then you couldn't do it." Simon Conklin nodded. "Go on, Simon. Tell me all about you and Gary." Conklin was crying. We got beat up a lot when we were kids. We were inseparable. I was there when Gary burned down his own house. His stepmother was inside with her 2 kids. So was his father. I watched over the 2 kids he kidnapped in D.C. I was the one at Cross's house. You were right. It might as well have been Gary. He planned everything." Pierce finally took away the tape recorder and shut it off. "That's much better, Simon. I do believe you." What Simon Conklin had just said seemed like a good break point, somewhere to end. The investigation was over. He'd proved he was better than Alex Cross. "I'm going to tell you something. Something amazing, Simon. You'll appreciate this, I think." He raised the scalpel, and Simon Conkling tried to squirm away.